Senator Cruz, thank you for taking the time to meet with me. My name is Hannah Nieto, and I'm a Master of Social Work student at Arizona State University. I'm here today to speak to you about the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, otherwise known as HUD, and specifically the HUD Equal Access Rule. My goal is to advocate for strengthening federal enforcement so that shelters receiving HUD funding consistently uphold non-discrimination protections for transgender and gender-expansive individuals. HUD plays a central role in ensuring that emergency shelters operate safely and fairly, and that is why this issue requires your attention. The first concern I want to raise is the lack of consistent federal enforcement of HUD's Equal Access Rule, particularly the gender identity placement protections established in the 2016 HUD update. Although HUD requires that individuals in HUD-funded shelters be housed according to their self-identified gender, enforcement has varied significantly over time. Periods of weakened HUD oversight have allowed some shelters to disregard these protections entirely. This creates a situation where HUD policy exists on paper, but without accountability, HUD's intended protections are not reliably upheld. When HUD rules are inconsistently enforced, the people who rely on HUD-funded services are the ones who face the consequences. This reform is urgently needed because weak HUD enforcement has real and harmful effects. Research shows that when HUD oversight is limited, some shelters continue using sex-assigned at birth placement or even deny services altogether, despite HUD's non-discrimination requirements. The U.S. Transgender Survey found that 30% of transgender individuals seeking shelter were turned away, and another 22% experienced sexual assault in shelter settings. These outcomes demonstrate the risk created when HUD does not actively monitor compliance or intervene when discrimination occurs. When HUD's protections are not enforced, transgender and gender-expansive individuals face increased exposure to violence, unsafe placements, and service denial. Scholarly research also shows that non-discrimination policies only work when paired with implementation supports, such as staff training, monitoring systems, and clear accountability mechanisms. Studies have also found that LGBTQ-affirming policies become symbolic when enforcement is weak, because staff discretion, bias, or even inadequate training can still lead to misgendering, inappropriate placement, or exclusion from services. Other research highlights that transgender individuals, especially youth, face heightened vulnerability to homelessness and institutional discrimination when protections are inconsistently applied. Without strong HUD enforcement, these patterns continue, and the intent of HUD's Equal Access Rule is continuously undermined. Because the absence of enforcement exposes transgender individuals to violence, health disparities, and chronic homelessness, strengthening HUD's oversight is essential to fulfilling the human rights and social justice intent of the HUD Equal Access Rule. HUD has the authority and responsibility to ensure that shelters receiving HUD funds follow HUD's non-discrimination requirements. Consistent HUD monitoring, clear expectations, and consequences for noncompliance are necessary to guarantee non-discriminatory access to emergency shelter. Without strong HUD enforcement, the Equal Access Rule cannot function as intended. To support full implementation of the HUD Equal Access Rule, I am requesting several actions within Congress's authority. First, I'm asking you to consider co-sponsoring legislation that would write the 2016 HUD Equal Access Rules gender identity protections into federal law so that these protections cannot be weakened through administrative changes alone. Research on legislative behavior notes that co-sponsorship is one way members of Congress signal support and help increases a bill's visibility. This would help ensure that HUD's protections remain stable and enforceable. Second, I am asking you to use congressional oversight tools such as hearings, letters of inquiry, and committee review to ensure HUD is actively enforcing the Equal Access Rule. The Congressional Research Service explains that oversight is a key mechanism for monitoring whether agencies like HUD are following federal policy. Congressional oversight can help ensure that HUD is conducting compliance reviews, responding to discrimination complaints, and providing clear guidance to shelters. Third, I am requesting that you include clear expectations for HUD in the annual appropriations process. Congress can require HUD to conduct compliance reviews, provide staff training, and publicly report on discrimination complaints. The Congressional Research Service notes that appropriations language can guide how agencies like HUD operate because it comes from the committee responsible for funding. When Congress sets those expectations for HUD in appropriations documents, HUD typically follows them. Taken all together, these actions would help ensure that the HUD Equal Access Rule is not only written policy, but a consistently enforced protection for transgender and gender expansive individuals seeking safe shelter. Strengthened HUD enforcement would help reduce discrimination, improve safety, and uphold the dignity of every person who relies on HUD-funded services. Senator Cruz, I appreciate your time and consideration, and I hope you will support efforts to ensure that HUD fulfills its responsibility to protect all individuals seeking emergency shelter. Thank you.